November 11th, 2007. The location is the Gulf of Mexico, roughly 200 miles south of the Texas border. We are looking through the camera lens of a remote-operated vehicle, an ROV, piloted by engineers for the Shell Oil Company. They are currently hovering at a depth of 2,386 meters. For context, military submarines crush like soda cans at 700 meters. Sunlight disappears completely at 1,000. At this depth, the pressure is over 3,000 pounds per square inch. It is a crushing, hostile void where human biology simply cannot exist. The pilots are scanning the darkness for pipeline damage. They are looking for rust. They are looking for cracks in the infrastructure. Instead, they find this. It drifts into the frame like a hallucination. It ignores the blinding halogen lights of the submersible. It ignores the deafening mechanical roar of the thrusters. It does not flee. It does not attack. It simply hangs there, suspended in the black water, watching. When this footage was leaked to the public, it didn't just go viral. It disturbed people on a primal level. Viewers argued that it had to be fake. They claimed it was a piece of plastic debris, or a discarded movie prop, or a CGI hoax. Why? Because our brains struggle to accept that this is a living animal. Nature, as we understand it, builds in curves. Muscles flex, fins undulate, tails beat to generate thrust. But this thing holds itself at rigid 90-degree angles. Its limbs are bent like broken piping. It looks less like an organism and more like a structure, a marionette puppet whose strings have been cut, left to drift in the abyss. For years, internet forums called it the long-arm alien. Others simply called it the thing. Science calls it Magnapinna, the big fin. It is real. It is massive. And it is, without a doubt, the most biologically confusing organism we have ever encountered in the deep ocean. We like to believe that the age of discovery is over. We look at Google Earth and assume that because we have mapped the continents, we know who shares this planet with us. But the history of the Magnapinna is a history of human ignorance. It is a timeline of missed connections and misunderstood monsters. The first time humanity physically touched one of these ghosts was over a century ago, in 1907. A strange specimen washed up on the shores of the Azores Islands in the Atlantic. It was dead, mutilated by the waves, and barely recognisable. The biologists of the time were baffled. It looked like a squid, but the fins were enormous, almost like elephant ears. The arms were damaged, appearing short and stubby. They catalogued it, shoved it into a jar of ethanol, and essentially forgot about it. They labelled it Magnapinna, Latin for big fin, but they assumed it was a small, bottom-dwelling oddity. They had no idea that the stubby arms they saw were actually just the broken stumps of something much, much longer. For the next 80 years, the creature remained a myth, a single jar on a dusty shelf. It wasn't until 1988 that we entered their territory. The French submersible Nautil was conducting deep-sea dives off the coast of northern Brazil. At depth, the crew reported seeing something massive in the water column. They described it not as a squid, but as a glider. They saw great white wings, undulating slowly in the dark. They couldn't get close enough to see the details. The creature was elusive, fading back into the shadows before the cameras could focus. But the pilots noted that it didn't move like a fish. It moved like a phantom. The breakthrough, the moment the horror truly set in, didn't arrive until 2001. A team of scientists led by Dr. Michael Vecchione of NOA finally connected the dots. They realised that for decades we had been catching these things in our nets, but we were catching the babies. Tiny translucent creatures found near the surface. They looked normal. They looked harmless. No one suspected that these small, delicate animals were the larval stage of the giants in the deep. This discovery implies a terrifying metamorphosis. Somewhere in the descent, somewhere between the safety of the sunlight zone and the crushing pressure of the midnight zone, they change, they stretch, they break the familiar rules of biology to become something else entirely. To understand why the big fin feels so wrong to look at, we have to dismantle its architecture. We have to look at it not as a monster, but as a machine built for a specific purpose. A standard squid, like the ones you see on a dinner plate, or even the famous giant squid, is a hunter. It has 8 arms and 2 longer feeding tentacles. The tentacles are equipped with clubs, dense muscle pads covered in serrated suckers. They are built for speed, violence, and aggression. The Magnapinna abandoned that design millions of years ago. First, look at the limbs. It possesses 10 appendages, and unlike any other known squid, they are indistinguishable from one another. There are no specialized clubs, just 10 identical spindly fingers. But the defining feature, the thing that gives you nightmares, are the elbows. The arms project outward from the body, horizontally for a few feet. Then they abruptly break downward, a perfect 90-degree turn. In human anatomy, a limb that bends this way is broken. In the deep sea, it is a survival strategy. From these elbows, the filaments drape down for meters. In the largest estimated specimens, these arms can stretch nearly 8 meters long. That is 26 feet of reach. If you were to hover in the water next to an adult Magnapinna, the fins alone, the head of the creature, would be the size of your entire torso. The mantle would act as a massive oscillating hood above you, but below you, the arms would descend past the floor of a 2-story house. And the most unsettling part? They don't swim. Most cephalopods rely on jet propulsion, sucking water into the mantle and blasting it out to rocket forward. The bigfin can do this, but in almost every video we have, it chooses not to. Instead, it relies on chemical buoyancy. Its tissues are saturated with ammonium ions, a chemical byproduct that is slightly lighter than seawater. This allows the bigfin to achieve neutral buoyancy. It does not sink. It does not float. It exists in a state of permanent suspension. It does not need to burn energy to stay afloat. It is, quite literally, a chemical ghost. It can remain motionless for days, perhaps weeks, waiting in the dark. So what is it doing? Why evolve arms that are 20 times the length of your body? Why hold them at such precise, rigid angles? The terrifying reality is that we simply don't know for sure. We have never seen a Magnapinna eat. We have never found food in their stomachs, because we have never managed to capture an adult intact. When we try to bring them to the surface, their delicate bodies disintegrate in the pressure change. We are left only with theories, and the leading theory is that the bigfin is a living spiderweb. Scientists believe the squid drags its long, sticky filaments across the seafloor, or hangs them in the water column like a drifting curtain. It is not hunting you, it is trawling for you. Unlike the giant squid, which uses suction cups lined with serrated teeth to tear into flesh, the Magnapinna likely uses something more insidious. We believe the filaments are covered in microscopic sticky suckers. Imagine you are a small fish or a shrimp navigating the absolute darkness of the midnight zone. You cannot see the ceiling, you cannot see the walls. Suddenly you brush against a thin, invisible thread. Instantly you are stuck. You thrash, but the line is flexible, and far above you, 6 meters up in the pitch black, something feels the vibration on the line. The elbows flex. The trap hoists you up toward the beak. This passive style of feeding suggests a creature that operates on a completely different timescale than us. It does not chase. It has nowhere to be. It simply waits for the ocean to provide. To truly fear this creature, you must understand the world it calls home. The Magnapinna inhabits the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone. This is the layer of ocean between 1,000 and 4,000 meters deep. It is the single largest habitat on Earth by volume, and yet it is an alien planet. Pressure here is equivalent to having a family sedan parked on every square inch of your body. To survive here, biology has to change. You cannot have air spaces. You cannot have brittle bones. You must become liquid. You must become gelatinous. This is why the bigfin looks so fragile. It is fragile. If you brought it to the surface, it would turn into a puddle of slime. It requires the crushing weight of the ocean just to hold its shape. This environment also triggers a phenomenon known as deep-sea gigantism. For reasons we still don't fully understand, perhaps to endure the cold or to cover more distance in search of scarce food, animals down here grow to impossible sizes. Crabs grow to span 12 feet. Isopods, essentially pill bugs, grow to the size of footballs, and squids become leviathans. The bigfin is the king of this silent, high-pressure desert. It has no natural predators that we know of. It is the apex of the void. There is a psychological reason why this specific animal haunts us more than a shark or a whale. If we see a great white shark, we feel fear. That is a rational, evolutionary response to a predator with teeth. We understand teeth. We understand biting. But when we see the big fin, we feel dread. It triggers a psychological error code in the human brain known as the Uncanny Valley. Usually this applies to robots or dolls that look almost human, but not quite. The big fin mimics the human form in a grotesque way. The large fins look like shoulders. The head looks like a skull. The vertical drop of the arms looks like long, spindly legs. When you see it drifting in the distance, your brain doesn't register squid. It registers person. It registers humanoid. It looks like a child's drawing of a monster brought to life. It resembles the tripods from H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. It is a reminder that on this planet, life does not necessarily mean like us. We share DNA with this thing. We share a planet with this thing. And yet, it looks as if it evolved in a completely different universe. The Magnapinna is not rare. That is the most sobering fact of all. Since we learned how to spot them, we have seen them in the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, and the Gulf of Mexico. They are everywhere. We assume that because we have mapped the ocean floor with satellites, we know what is down there. But mapping the floor is like mapping the ground of a forest from an airplane. You can see the hills, but you cannot see the wolves hiding under the trees. The Bigfin Squid was essentially invisible to science until the 21st century. A creature the size of a building hiding in plain sight. It forces us to ask the uncomfortable question: if a predator this large, this strange, and this widespread could remain hidden from us for this long, what else is down there? What is drifting just outside the range of our floodlights? What is watching us right now from the crushing dark?